It's Monday, so Joe Lindsay is with us. Joe, as our viewers know, is for many years in Ukraine and is reporting this war not only for TVP World. You can hear him on WGN radio in Chicago. Joe, welcome back to TVP World. We've seen the footage posted online by the Ukrainian armed forces urging everyone to stay silent about what we all expect. So what do you make of it, and what people in Ukraine make of the situation right now?
Well, Michał, good afternoon from Lviv. It is a holiday here, by the way, Zeleny Sviata, which means green holidays. And so I'm outside of the Church of St. Michael, the Archangel. And it's, here you see people keep their traditions so well here, and especially in the time of war. For months we've heard of the counteroffensive. And, Ukraine has been in a delicate position because they have to keep showing the world that things are happening, but they have to be secret and quiet about everything about their actions, so the enemy doesn't know what's happening. And so this powerful video reminding people, especially I think people on Twitter as well, and sort of armchair analysts, to stay quiet. And this is, this war is the war with the most public access in human history, which is very interesting because the first Crimean War in the 1850s was the first war with telegraph and photos. And people in America could hear in the 1850s for the first time about faraway events. But this war now, Russia's war on Ukraine, is the first war with telegram, where people can instantly share minute by minute when there are missile attacks, all the damage, all the atrocities. And so the world, because of that, the world can know the story of what's happening in Ukraine. And, I really believe that if we look at the first days and weeks of Russia's full-scale invasion, had there not been the social media sharing of the reality in Ukraine, and had Ukrainians not been savvy about sharing that, I think the world would not have cared. Governments around the world, including in Washington, were pretty quiet in the beginning of the invasion. And I think many people were expecting Ukraine would fall, and they were hoping that the problem would just go away. But because the public saw what was happening, the politicians from everywhere from Paris to Berlin to Washington were forced to act. And so this is the difficult balancing point, because now we still have to keep the world interested in what's happening, but you have to have tight lips. And, everyone knows here, soldiers, people going to fights, people training, people know there are movements. I've seen some videos over the weekend from other places in Europe. There was a little village, I'm not even sure what country it is, of a fighter jet being driven through the streets of a European village. People often, I know people who, foreigners, when they come to Ukraine, they tell me, they see certain things arriving on the trains. That cannot be shared, exactly what it is. And so this is the great effort that's happening. Now, we do see a few moments of breakthrough. We see what's happening in the Belgorod region of Russia.
Hold on, Joe, because I wonder what do you make of the official? Well, we just quoted it during the opening monologue. There is an analysis by the Institute for Study of War. According to the authors, Russia has no idea what to do about those local incursions and is thinking only about the informational aspect of it, like tackling the info about it, not the incursions itself. I mean, I remember it. I used to live in the Soviet Empire, and I remember what was the reaction of this state, of Soviet Union, when I crossed or actually approached the border back in 1980s with my father. The reaction was prompt and immediate, and there was no thinking about any kind of approaching the border even. We are talking about the incursions, about the Russia, which is unable to do anything about incursions. I mean, What is going on? This is something truly significant.
And I have spoken with, I have a friend who has a friend in the Russian Freedom for Russia Legion. And I'm sorry, Michał, are you still there?
Yeah, sure. We can see you. Okay, we can hear you nice and clear.
Great. I have a friend who has a friend in the Freedom for Russia Legion, and I saw on my friend's phone a video from one of the abandoned Russian border posts. So I have very personal, trustworthy confirmation that this is indeed happening. And while we can never be complacent, but this should be a sign to the world For those who still haven't believed that Russia is weaker, and we don't have to be afraid of Russia, even though they have they can do a lot of damage, but Russia has a lot of problems. They have a lot of societal problems. They don't have the unity, the social unity that Ukrainians have. And now we're starting to see a lot of chaos in the Russian border. Now, there's a lot of hope that these could become breakaway republics. This has been a dream. I've known many people working very steadily on what happens to the Russian Federation so we can have peace. And there have been people working on the project of breakaway Russian republics. It seemed like an impossible dream, but here we see some hope with what could happen in Belgorod. Now, again, we can't jump ahead too far, but clearly you have the Freedom for Russia Legion, you have the Great Polish Volunteer Corps, and others are in Russian territory and not meeting much resistance. And so this is, as we look to, as Ukraine still makes the argument that for more weapons, for fighter jets, this should give the world encouragement that the moment is right for Ukraine. As the British Foreign Minister, James Cleverly, said last week, Ukraine has every right and actually a necessity to hit targets within Russia. And so now is the time. And we do see, Michał, in the face of this Russian propaganda, stepping up their efforts. For example, I heard from many friends over the weekend in America that there are, they asked me, how come there are Ukrainian weapons in Mexico? Why is Ukraine selling weapons to Mexico? And the evidence for this is zero. There was a Mexican TV report with javelins, and all they said on the Mexican TV was that these javelins are similar to what is in Ukraine. That's it. There's no more evidence than that. And it's very possible that these javelins...
isn't it the javelin is similar to javelin because it's javelin?
Exactly. Yeah. Really, it is that weak of a piece... And all you have to do is watch the broadcast in Spanish and you can find the truth. But I have respected people, including people who are veterans of the CIA and other things, spewing this absolutely false nonsense with no facts and no information. And one common thing that people tell me, oh, Joe, you haven't been in a war zone before, but this is different. I've been here every day of this war. And by the way, this war is unique because reporters have access. Like in Iraq and Afghanistan, reporters' access was controlled by the American military. Here, as a reporter, I'm free to try. I talk with people everywhere, totally freely. And I have a picture of a society working, to an existential fight for existence. In the early weeks of the war, it was a common narrative that a lot of weapons from the United States were being stolen. And people kept saying that, including people who were here on the ground from the United States. And I kept pushing for evidence because every checkpoint I went to, I never saw any of these stories of people taking medical kits and weapons for money or stealing them from volunteers. And so I asked a very respected volunteer here who often repeated this narrative. I said, how do you know this? Did you see it? And he said, no, so someone told me, someone I respect. And I said, who is that person? Well, he's like, she's in San Francisco. Has she ever been to Ukraine? And so much of this is just lazy journalism, lazy talking, lazy tweeting without actually looking at the facts.
Joe,
so there is no evidence.
I wonder,
yeah, go ahead.
I wonder, since we do have lots of this kind of info garbage in the infosphere since the World Day #1, my question regarding what we see right now and what is happening right now, and I would like to stay for a while. You probably, lots of people who are interested in this war probably saw those pictures from Russian Federation territory taken by the members of those volunteer units. Does it mean the fact that the cities that are bordering with Ukraine are basically left with no military support from the Russian Federation? Does it mean that Russia is concentrating its troops somewhere where it is expecting a Russian counteroffensive? I don't want to get into details. We are trying to be, silent about the thing. But is that the way we should understand it? Or is it some broader problem, the broader problem that we may think of when we listen to the video posts of this war criminal Prigozhin and some other, sorry to say that, morons and war criminals that are that are posting stuff online. What do you make of it? I mean, it's so unusual situation, but the war itself is unusual on the other hand, so it's very hard to assess it from the armchair perspective.
Yeah, I mean, certainly it seems that the Russians have been concentrating their troops elsewhere. We saw how many bodies they threw at Bakhmut, and they have had that capacity. I mean, they lost a lot there. But I think it also shows that we don't see great love for their society from the Kremlin. And unfortunately, there was a little bit of a parallel here when the first days of the full-scale invasion, when Kherson fell so quickly. And a lot of people in Ukraine think that the government the local government in Kherson probably certainly had corrupt ties and received bribes from the Russians, and that's why it fell so quickly. So there was that problem on the Ukraine side early on. Perhaps it's identical or a parallel situation happening in Belgorod, where people don't want to live, under a Russian hell. I mean, and especially. I mean, in that region, they used to go to Kharkiv a lot. I mean, people cross the border frequently. When I was in Kharkiv in January 2022, there were taxi drivers taking people to Belgorod from the station. And so maybe there's a hope that, most Ukrainians don't speak with their Russian relatives. It really seems most of that nation is brainwashed. But maybe there is some kind of breakthrough happening in that border region.
Joe, we also heard that, and there were some statements made by Volodymyr Zelensky about the NATO membership, that actually Volodymyr Zelensky, Ukrainian president, is aware of the difficulty or probably impossibility of joining NATO before the war ends. But on the other hand, as we quoted here Thomas Steiner, the Ukrainian military right now is probably the most powerful military in Europe right now.
Yeah.
What is the way that you understand the statement made by Volodymyr Zelensky? The level of support of NATO membership in Ukraine is historically high. We remember that back in, 2008, when Ukraine was denied access to NATO at the Bucharest NATO summit, that was precisely the argument that was used by, for example, by Germany, that the level of support among the Ukrainian people of joining NATO was too low. Now it's very high, but there is a statement of this kind of Volodymyr Zelensky. What do you make of it?
Well, one, we have to remember, and contra a lot of the conspiracy theorists and Ukraine opponents in America, people like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and many others, there was no chance of Ukraine joining NATO before the full-scale invasion. NATO was not moving toward that. Ukraine wanted it, of course, because they didn't want this war to happen. But if we have to go back and look at all the news articles where the Washington was, and Joe Biden included, were always lecturing Ukraine, saying they use their favorite word to describe Ukraine, corruption, as though every other country is not corrupt, and as though Russia is not corrupt. Russia is sort of the definition of corruption. But so there was no chance of Ukraine joining NATO. There was no interest because they didn't want to have to get into this type of fight. And I think obviously now, in a way, Ukraine is, because, the strength of its army, you have the innovation of its army. Really, NATO can learn so much now from Ukraine. But of course, there's no chance. There's no chance that Ukraine could join NATO until victory is had. Because then that would, trigger Article 5, and no one wants to do that. And I think even Ukrainians understand, Ukraine is not asking for countries to send soldiers, except as volunteers, like the Polish Volunteer Corps, currently in part of Russia. Ukraine is saying, we will do the fight, just send us the weapons. That's it. I think for most people in the free world, it's not too much to ask. And in fact, a lot of Europeans, like the Baltic countries, 50% of their defense budgets go to Ukraine. And even then, on top of that, individual citizens, taxpayers in those countries, donate their own time and money to help Ukraine, because they really see that this is a unique situation in the world where you have a country that they have the ability, as long as they're well supplied, to stand up to an evil empire and prevent a global catastrophe and a global world war.
Joe, I wonder because when we are following all those information, we are hungry of information about the collapse of Russian Federation, at least in the states that know what is the meaning of the Russian imperialism. We tend to cover and listen and try to find the information about the possible support for the fighting Ukraine. There is a pattern, there is some kind of scheme on the European car market. It's very hard to buy in Central Europe 4x4 cars that are capable of carrying small units to the front line. We know that specific types of terrain cars are being sent over the. I would like to have your say. Is this kind of devices are needed over there? Because lots of people just try to do it, to send those kind of things and send it over to Ukraine. We see lots of videos like this. Do you know anything about it? What is what are the needs of the people who are fighting over there in that regard?
Well, the biggest needs that regular people can help with now, besides voting for politicians that will support the real big weapons and the fighter jets, are indeed SUVs and pickup trucks, which I just saw a friend of mine just got a truck from Poland, and he's going to be bringing it to the east because those cars, they get easily destroyed. They get beat up very quickly, riddled with bullet holes. And so there's a constant need for a new supply. They're very helpful to get through the fields and the terrain in Donbass and other places. So, yes, a big need for cars. And then always, as always, a huge need for medical first aid kits, individual first aid kits, IFAKs, with the chest seals. If you get shot, I mean, that can save your life or prevent you from losing an arm or a leg. Ukrainians have really, with a lot of American volunteers in particular, have become very good at battlefield medicine, but they need the tools and the kit for that. And so those things, vehicles and these individual first aid kits, which they can be purchased for about $50 now. The price has gone down to even make them here in Ukraine. And so there is, in fact, if anyone wants to support UkrainianFreedomNews.com, if you send anything today, we'll use that to purchase first aid kits for individual soldiers.
Joe, I was just thinking about it yesterday when I was preparing this program, when we were reading the news from Ukraine. Maybe that's a good idea to ask our viewers. If you like it, in the comment section on YouTube, you can give us your say. Maybe the Rachon viewers can just organize a pickup truck or two and send it so the guys can move closer to the Ruskies. I was just thinking about it. So if our viewers think that it's a good idea, you can post it online. We will try to do it. And Joe is over there, so he probably knows one or two people who can help delivering those.
Always, and we always have a request. And Michał, that's one great thing about the war effort. For the first time in human history, someone sitting on their couch or in their kitchen in California can actually be a hero and be fully a part of it. Last week I spoke to you from the frontline kitchen, and you have young people, you have grandmas, everyone from all over the world coming to cook for the soldiers. But you can help even just from your hometown, anywhere in the world, by getting this life-saving equipment to Ukrainian soldiers. So yeah, it'd be great if we could. I mean, if you send any donations to UkrainianFreedomNews.com, there's two donation options there. We'll use to purchase IFAKs, individual first aid kits. But maybe we can coordinate a bigger effort to purchase a truck or a vehicle, and you can know wherever you are in the world, you are fully a part of the fight, standing up for free people.
Well, let's wait and let's see what is the reply of our viewers. We are reading the comment section, so well, next week we probably are going to have an answer. Joe, stay safe. Thanks for your time. We see each other next Monday.
Michał, dziękuję. Until Monday.
Cześć. Bye-bye. Think about it. Maybe it's a good idea. We see each other tomorrow. This show comes back on Tuesday.
Thank you for introducing Ukraine on your social media pages. That's very important that much more people can get more information about the situation here and how everybody can help Ukraine to stay stronger and to save all the world.
Що він сказав?
Well, which side are you on? На чиїй ти стороні? Come on now. Oh, which side are you on? На чиїй ти стороні?